cancer-free. And so that means it got closer to me to take over my seat in Congress.
Everything we needed, that the Albanian people needed. Democracy, freedom, and another very powerful word. It's called self-determination. That even if I am a minority in another country, but I'm a large enough minority, and I'm not being treated properly, I have the constitutional right, universal right, to stand up and say, I'm not accepted here, they don't like me here, and maybe I belong in another country, or maybe we got to separate, and that's what we did for Kosovo, right? Let's go. So we have somebody that understands all this, and I realized early on, here's a guy that was a speechwriter for Richard Nixon. Speechwriter, for Ronald Reagan. But he did something with Nixon too, I forget what it was.
The great one.
That was too early. Ronald Reagan. And he, you know, did a lot of things before he came to Congress to show his interest in foreign affairs, traveled all over. But I realized when we had all those meetings with the chairman back then, and we had chairman, that one guy was a Democrat, Dante Fascell. Another one was Henry Hyde. Then you had Ben Gilman. Then you had Lantos. He was the most outspoken of all the congressmen when we had the committee hearings because he understood what freedom meant, what self-determination meant. I'll give you one example, and now I'm going to pass it on.
Because of this forgotten group of people in the world, trying to get everybody's attention on this little group of people who are suffering and are being, and their rights are being violated. You got Joe and Shirley say, look at these people trying to do something about this. Well,
and now it's Brzezinski's time. We are not going to stop until Brzezinski gets the same rights as the Serbs in Kosovo.
There you go.
That's what we do. Let's tell everybody why Dana came here. Right? Well, that's what we got to do.
So we're very, very grateful. I am grateful. And also, let me just note that I'm grateful to Joe and Shirley for the education that they've helped me with over the years. They're the ones who brought me to Kosovo. I mean, you know, and I found out more. One thing I did find out, that the peppers and the tomatoes in Kosovo are the best in the world. The best in the world. And,
great coffee.
Very good, I know.
So anyway, then he took me around. They took me around Kosovo and Albania, and showed me, of course. Now think about this. They're doing this on their own. This is time and money and expense and.
Thank God we have supporters that support that.
But think about this. Once you're over 60, you realize that every minute of your life that you invest is something that you better think is very valuable, because you only have a limited time on this planet. And Joe and Shirley have dedicated themselves to making sure that this small group of people in the world who are the victims of injustice have the focus of those of us who believe in justice. And that was a wonderful thing that Joe and Shirley have done. They educated me.
Couldn't do it without you, Dana.
Well,
believe me.
And I couldn't do it except for the fact that early on in my life, I had the opportunity to work in Ronald Reagan's first campaign for governor, and later on, when I had become a reporter, Reagan brought me on his campaign, and I became Ronald Reagan's speechwriter in the White House for 7 years. And I will tell you that man, Ronald Reagan, created the basis, the foundation, for that Americans re-examined what our country is all about. And he had this new definition of what the United States, us, U.S. is us. And he talked about the shining city on the hill. Now we came here from every part of the world to show the world there was a better way, and how the fundamental beliefs that unite us as a people. So without that, I would not have won my first election. You know, I have very little money. I want you to know that I was recently diagnosed as the poorest member of Congress, and, which is okay. I'm actually the richest member. I am the richest member of Congress. You know why? Because God has blessed me with Rhonda and our 3 triplets at my age.
He's also blessed him with a lot of Republicans, so no Democrat could ever beat him in that district.
Luckily, I went into this.
By the way, he is running it.
Yes, I am running again. There was this Republican, this district, and I went in there. I had no money, but I left the Reagan administration. I had zero money, and I had zero name ID, because when you're a speechwriter, someone like the president, you're supposed to give him the credit for everything, and I feel good about that. That's fine. And so when I got back, I had no name ID and no money, but what I had was 50 pictures of myself with Ronald Reagan, and that's all I needed. Reagan wasn't just a president. He was a man who, as I say, had us re-examine our fundamental values. What do we need as Americans? What does that mean? And that's what is it, and that re-examination, that understanding of where that relates to things in the world, is made sure that Joe and Shirley and I were able to communicate on what policies flow from that basic philosophy. And as Joe mentioned, I do believe in individual freedom. I believe in democracy. But I also believe in self-determination. And that has caused me to have a lot of enemies. You can guess that because it creates problems for people. And the fact is that power structures don't want to give if this minority doesn't want to be part of your country, for us to force them to be part of that country is a violation of everything America is supposed to be about. What we have, of course, is our country started our birth with a Declaration of Independence. And when Joe talked about that hearing that we had, I was quoting that, the Declaration of Independence, where we have a right to sever the bonds that unite us. We, as a majority in that part of the world, believe that we need to institute a new government. Well, anyway, with that said, that's one part of it. The other part of it, I became aware of what Albanians were. So first of all, I became aware that what is the fundamental right that I believe in? People to self-determination in a free society. And where there's a group of people down there, Albanians. I will say very few people knew anything, and they still know very little about Albanians. And the fact is, the Albanian nation is a group of people who have a culture. Joe showed me that culture. Joe and Shirley took me to where they had the castle. Remember the castle? Where? So we're sitting there, and he said, "This is where they came down, and they had the
Ottoman Turks
all of
that castle."
But now here's what's fascinating: is of course they're fighting against the Turks. Now think about it now. The Albanians, in the public's mind, and in reality, I guess, are 90% Muslim or non-practicing believers.
60.
But mainly Muslims, okay? But here they are, their culture had them opposed to the Muslim expansion through Turkey into that part of the world. And today I want you to know how important that whole concept is. Because today, when I first got involved in politics, it was the Soviet Union and communism, which was the major threat to free people in this world. I dedicated my entire life to defeating communism, and from the time I was 19 years old, anyway, in a far-off country, and from that moment on, I have been so active in trying to defeat communism. Communism is no longer the great threat to us, to our safety and our well-being. It's radical Islamic terrorists. But what's vitally important, if we're going to succeed, is that we understand it's not Islam that we're fighting. It's these radical terrorists, and the Albanian people are the best example of our allies who happen to have a different religious faith than some of the most Americans.
Thank you.
That is really significant, and I don't want to brag here, but there are very few people who understand that. And every time there's a debate, I keep telling people, no, if we actually try to make all of Islam our enemy, we're dooming ourselves to defeat. Right now there are so many Muslims that agree with us. I said, for example, every single thing we've done in the last 2 decades where we confronted radical Islam, guess what? The Albanians were on our side and they're Muslims. And you know what? Very few people in Congress know that. It's true. It really is. And we've got to struggle to let them know it if we're going to have their support for the rights of people, especially in the Balkans. And as far as the Balkans, let me just say this about the Peshawar Valley. I have long, and I've been getting my nose bloodied on this for a long time.
The State Department does not like us to bring this
It's the State Department, but it's also.
What are you making more trouble for?
And they are telling the people who run the government in Peshawar. Peshawar, pardon me, Peshawar. Getting the other government wrong. Peshawar. I was just over there a couple months ago, and they're telling them, don't touch this idea. But look, there's an area, as we know, north of the river in the of Kosovo. Yeah, it's 90% Serbs. Readjust the border. Let those Serbs be part of Serbia. Why should they keep them in when you know that they don't want to be, and they're going to cause nothing but problems?
And they're interfering with everything.
But at the same time,
even if they don't do that, we want Peshawar in Kosovo. That's where it belongs. It was there in 1956 when Yugoslavia was controlled by the Serbs.
Joe, anyway, we won't be able to accomplish that unless we have a vehicle.
Yeah.
The vehicle is put these people who don't want to be part of Kosovo in Serbia and put these Kosovars in Kosovo. Just readjust the border, and thus people's rights will be protected because we are accepting individual rights and we are accepting the right of self-determination and basing our plan on that. That's what I've been doing. We haven't had much headway yet, but we will win this. We will win this because it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing.
I want to one thing very short.
There's nothing very short with you. Go ahead.
We are not asking for more than what belongs to us.
Right.
These 2 mayors from Peshawar Valley are, for the moment, they're not talking about changing the borders. They're not talking about. Just tell Serbia to give me the rights equally as the Serbs has it in Kosovo, in the country of Kosovo,
Of course
which is right next door.
That is
as simple as that.
That's a short-term answer for the problem right now. The long-term answer is, let's let people, if there's a vast majority of people in the area who want to be part, they say, well, would you permit San Diego to have a vote to see if they wanted to be part of Mexico? Would you allow that vote? I say, absolutely right. And if the people of San Diego don't want to be part of the United States, adios San Diego.
So referendum, right? Referendum for Peshawar, like we tried to do in Macedonia.
They did one in 1992.
Then we
They had
lose charges. We need it recognized. It's not recognized by anybody.
We need a referendum.
You gotta have the vote.
They had a 1992 referendum.
So the policy, so the policy that I'm advocating is that we have a referendum there.
Yes.
Follow whatever that.
This has got to be done officially now.
Let the OSCE officially determine if the people want to be part of that.
Through the
Let the OSCE officially
mechanisms to do it.
make the other part there north of the river.
Dana, will you help us do this? Because I know we have to go through the European and EU mechanisms to show how badly treated this population of 100,000 Albanians and maybe even more, we don't know, because it's the highest birth rate in Europe. They are being treated so badly, but no one says anything about it. Or when we speak up, oh, keep your mouth shut.
Two things we got to do. Number one, you have to do that. But number two, we also have to get the Kosovo. Look, I got to tell you, their economy is nothing from what it could be.
Exactly.
They have enormous potential.
Exactly.
And we cannot sit there with Albania and Kosovo and just say, oh, well, we're going to settle it this way. They got to get their act together. We need to work with them to develop what? Progress, the production of wealth and jobs, so that ordinary people will not feel they have to leave. And that's basically, we got to do that as well. Which I went down. Let me give you an example. I just went down to Rashida, and they have a hospital in the middle of that town that had been sitting there. It is ready to be opened. An American went down and paid for the whole thing. And it's a hospital aimed at women's issues. And the bottom line is, they wouldn't give them the permits to open the hospital for 6. Somebody wanted it.
Corruption, right? That's what they want.
I have raised holy hell about it. And guess what? 2 weeks ago, I was notified the hospital is going to be open.
That's great.
Well, but why? But it shouldn't take the U.S. Congressman to do that. So we got to get to the point where the people down there do not require a U.S. outside pressure to do the right thing. There must be good people in Kosovo who are willing to do that. And in Albania, we have Kosovars, the Albanians, those people in Montenegro and Macedonia. We need to make sure we all work together to make sure not that we're going to make it, we're going to create some violence or anything, but we're going to make things better.
Okay, now Dana, we're going to help you once again. We did it, and you were the one that wanted that hearing, and you said, please make sure that my chairman, Ed Royce, has the support so we can vote to it. In 2 weeks, we have the chairman of the whole committee coming up here, Ed Royce. And why are we meeting right now? Now, we can't raise enough money.
Because he has the veto power over
everything. Now, we can't, I know, listen, you need to know what your problems are, and I know one of our problems is always raising enough money.
Someplace, but if you look real close at my wife, she's Basque. Right.
Oh, Basque.
She's Basque.
Catalonian.
Basque and Spain.
Yeah, that's right.
Just like the Albanians.
She understands Kosovo.
Ancient countries.
Right, so what do you think, we can do? Should we speak with Royce to advocate for this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Just let him know. And look, Ed and I are very close. But he's also got a lot of people pulling on him.
Exactly.
Can you imagine the pressure on him when I talked about Catalonia has a right to vote?
Which they do.
And, oh my,
they did.
An avalanche. Yes, they do.
They did. They won. They won.
And I actually supported also the Scots. The Scots have a right to vote.
Yeah, I know.
By the way, the Scots are Albanians. That was the 10th Roman Legion. The Scots, they lost the 10th Legion. If you take DNA, you'll find all the Scots are
Highlanders are related to us.
You know what? That's incredible. That is so cool.
Yes, it really is.
A priest in Toronto, his name was Ian MacDonald, wrote a book, McTavish, I'm an Albanian.
Yes.
And I got that book in Toronto.
That is so cool.
They brought the kilt to Scotland.
Yeah.
The kilt was the Albanians.
The Celtic word for Scotland is Alban.
You hear that?
Yes.
That is incredible.
The ancient word for Scotland is Alban.
Well, here's to Scotland.
Now Scotland.
So, if just briefly, if you wouldn't mind, because it's going to feed into this hearing, we'd like Fatsan to just make a short
a report on his
summary
trip
for you about what happened to him when he went to the State Department and other places with the mayors of Preševa and Buenos to discuss this issue.
Fatan, speak loud.
All right.
All right.
There you go.
That's it.
Atëherë të përshëndes prezencën e gjithë juve këtu, sidomos kongresistit. Falenderoj Biogardin I cili prej kohësh merret me problemin e shqiptarëve dhe tani për luginën e Preshevës.
United States. First of all, what is the United States? The United States isn't an Albanian culture, an English culture, a French culture, a German culture, an Asian culture. The United States is where we all come together to stand for those principles that are universal to humankind, not to the elite of humankind. That's of the people who can craft power and can craft wealth. It is to give hope, as our founding fathers thought about, giving hope to the people of the world who are struggling so that their families could live decent lives. That's what it was all about. That's what it's supposed to be about. Say what? We've got
Bishop has no problem with the Muslims. Why should we have a problem with these beautiful Albanians from Kosovo, mainly Muslims? And that's what, we never saw another Serb bishop again. They never came back.
that moment was the turning point.
It was.
That was the turning point.
That wasn't that great?
But,
That's the beginning of the better turning point.
Dana, I think you may have forgotten one other turning point, and as you see from what Joe has said, Dana is one of the few congressmen that really speaks truth to power. He isn't concerned about representing a party. He's concerned about representing the fundamental principles of the United States and extending them throughout the world. And it's something that we should all greatly appreciate. He's also very humble, actually, about his accomplishments and in relation to Southeast Europe. And there was another electrifying moment in a hearing, and I think you may remember this thing, when it was one of the last that the late Congressman and chairman at that time, Tom Lantos, held on behalf of Kosovo's independence. And at that time, I don't know whether any of you remember, I think it was part of the State Department policy to stand on the Constitution. In other words, and Dana stood up and said, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I suggest that if the 13 colonies had to meet standards before status, all of us in the United States would still be under the British. For